Welcome in for another episode of the Silver and Blue Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Sanchez. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Corey Douglas. Corey, it's not Victory Monday, unfortunately, as the Cowboys fell to the Packers 31-28 in overtime in Lambeau Field. I guess let's start off, just get our initial thoughts off our chest, and then I'll talk a little bit about my experience, my first time at Lambeau, because it was pretty incredible. That was any football fan, Lambeau Field needs to be on your bucket list, and that needs to be checked off your bucket list. But I'll talk about that a little later. Let's get our initial thoughts off our chest because we've been talking a little bit. I think we both have some thoughts.
Yeah, so I guess first I'm going to start off with I am off the bandwagon of this team seriously competing for Super Bowl contention. I think going into this game, I think we knew it was going to be a tough game, but I think we both thought that the Cowboys had enough to win this football game just based off the Packers' injuries and kind of stuff they have been going through on offense and not really having the playmakers that could beat you. All of that kind of went down the wayside. I think going into it, we thought that the Packers would kind of commit to running the football. They did that, ran for over 200 yards on this defense yet again. Um, it's just the way the Cowboys lose football games is always just consistent. It's penalties. It's just making crucial mistakes at the
Yeah.
wrong time. It's turnovers. It's inconsistent, whether it's communication with the receivers and quarterback. It's that. It's just all these combinations of run defense is, the biggest thing on the defensive side of the ball. It's not getting corrected. It hasn't been corrected for going back to when they played the Rams in the playoffs a couple years ago. They get bullied last year by San Francisco. They go out and grab Hankins to kind of, fix the run defense. And, he played decent his first game, but they still get ran over. Then they get ran over again after the bye week. So I guess my overall thoughts of this team definitely shifted with the way they lost the game because, like I said at the beginning, we thought this game would be tough. It's on the road. It's in Lambeau. Aaron Rodgers is our nemesis, and it just the way they lost the game.
Yeah.
It's just too consistent from previous years for me to feel comfortable going forward. Now, obviously, they have another whole other challenge this upcoming Sunday against Minnesota, where they maybe can correct some of those things. But at the end of the day, even if they win against Minnesota, I just don't see this as a long term um, thing where they can have postseason success as currently constructed.
Yeah, and I put this out on Twitter today, and it actually got a lot more interactions than my tweets normally do because I think Cowboy fans agreed with me on this, but I said today basically that losing this game wasn't like that's not inexcusable. Like no matter what year the situation, losing at Lambeau Field isn't some mortal sin. It's not that they lost, it's sort of how they lost. Just having a 14-point lead. We've all seen the stat about they were 195-0 in franchise history when taking a 14 plus point lead into overtime or into the fourth quarter. Um, it's just frustrating how they lost. Just the offensive inconsistency is still there. Just across the board. I mean, Dak was decent yesterday, but I thought he left some throws on the table. He's been pretty inefficient at times since he's returned. Um, and then just penalties. The penalties rear their ugly head again. And as good as this defense is, as good as your pass rush is, it doesn't matter if you're getting gashed for 6-7 yards a run. And when you finally get them in third down, it doesn't matter if it's 3rd and 2. So just a lot of those issues are really rearing their ugly heads, and they did yesterday. And Dallas can and probably will be fine going forward, but there's some really concerning issues that I also pointed out on Twitter today. That like this isn't just like, oh, so and so didn't play well. Like going forward, we have some pretty serious issues that teams are going to be able to exploit. The three that I named we're getting really thin at corner. Jordan Lewis done for the year. Anthony Brown goes out early with a concussion, and Kelvin Joseph is just not ready. He really struggled yesterday. I thought Deron Bland, as much as he showed in the preseason, as much as I like him going forward,
Struggled.
he's being asked to do too much. I mean, this is a 5th round rookie that you're asking to be I mean, at this point, without Jordan Lewis and Anthony Brown, and we don't even know if Anthony Brown's going to be playing on Sunday, because he went out with that concussion. I mean, you're asking a 5th-round rookie to be your number 2 corner, and that's just in 99% of cases that's too much to ask. So I said the reading really thin at corner, and then I think I said defenses are not scared of any of your pass catchers outside of CeeDee Lamb, who we'll talk about in a minute. And then, the run defense just continues to be gashed. And I don't know how fixable those 3 issues are. I think adding Odell Beckham would help a lot in terms of the receiver area. And it would ask less of Michael Gallup, who's really struggled since his return. But I don't know how fixable the run defense and the cornerback situation is at this point in the season, which is kind of why I was hoping for that they would go get maybe a depth corner at the trade deadline, something like Atlanta did a deal with KC and picked up Rashad Fenton. Like even just like a small name like that would have really helped Dallas. And it's just it's yesterday was just frustrating on a lot of fronts, and we'll get into it in a minute. But I think those were our general thoughts about where this thing is. And now, granted, here's the thing, Corey. I said last week, I would sign right up for a 1-1 on this 2-game road trip at Green Bay, at Minnesota. That's still right in front of them. But they're now in 3rd place in the NFC East behind the Giants. They'll get their shot at the Giants on Thanksgiving here in a couple weeks. But I don't want to say the Minnesota game is a must win, but it's pretty close to a must win in terms of keeping up with the NFC East and just maintaining your playoff pace.
Yeah, it's I mean, these next 2 games against Minnesota and New York, you need to win both of these at this point,
Yep.
because coming off a performance like that where you blow a 2 touchdown lead, which you referenced, on the road, you're against another great NFC team. They're 8-1 coming into this football game. Some of the issues that they're going to, give you are some issues or areas that you've struggled in, especially these last couple of weeks against the Bears and Packers. So it's going to be very important. Like I said, the defense is just, I mean, you have Justin Jefferson. I feel like we say this every year. I think I tweeted this. It's just like we play Minnesota at Minnesota. It feels like every year, and every year we go into the game saying, "Oh my God, Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson will go crazy on us," and it just never quite materializes that way. We
Yep.
went in there last year, won with Cooper Rush. So these things are, I mean, they're a beatable team. I know they're 8-1, like I just referenced, but I mean they've had some close calls, especially in recent weeks where Washington had them down 10 points, and that's the Washington team that you handled pretty easily with your backup quarterback. But it's another road game. It's another road performance. You're gonna have to go out there, and this is something that, in especially in the Dak Prescott era, we've struggled on the road. I referenced the
Yeah.
cold weather last week. I feel like that kind of played a part into it. You had Dalton Schultz calling out teammates for the cleats that they were wearing. How they were slipping, and Mike McCarthy was talking about that in his press conference last week. It's just those type of little things. Just the team makeup is just a team that just doesn't have any discipline, and it's just been so consistent for so many years at this point, to where, like, whenever you get in these big important games on the road against other competition that's on your level and not the Detroit Lions and Chicago Bears, they come out, and we have 3 losses this year: Bucks, Eagles, and now the Packers. The Packers weren't a good team coming into this game. Maybe they found their footing. I mean, we let a guy that had what 9, 10 catches for like 88 yards for the entire season come in and drop 3 touchdowns and over 100 yards on us.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous at this point.
Yeah. I guess let's, in terms of things to discuss from yesterday, let's start with the offense. And I do want to talk about the 3rd down offense. Um, Ed Werder put out a stat today per ESPN. Dak Prescott went 4 of 12 for 49 yards and 2 picks on 3rd and 4th down on Sunday. Prescott has completed an NFL low 43% of his passes on 3rd and 4th down with 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. No QB has posted a completion percentage that low on those downs since Tim Tebow in 2011. So yeah, the 3rd down offense has been a problem all year. And this, I'm a pretty staunch Dak defender, but he hasn't been his sharpest. I can admit that. But I think these issues go beyond Dak, because I think through Dak's career, he's proven to be a pretty damn good quarterback on third down. We have several years of data of Dallas being one of the best third down offenses with him over the last 2 years. So I think part of it is Prescott hasn't been his sharpest at all. But I mean, there's just not a lot of separation going on. They're finding themselves in third and long a decent bit, putting them in bad situations with these penalties. The offense is really frustrating, and they just leave a lot on the table. Both interceptions were really frustrating, just in terms of, CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz both screwed up on the interceptions, but like, and
Why are you throwing that?
yeah, well, so the one in the end zone was pretty inexcusable. I mean, regardless of what route was supposed to be run, you don't throw that. The second one I did think was on CD, just in terms of Dak thinks he's coming under the safety, and it's a timing right. He can't wait to see if CD actually is going to come under the safety. And CD was running a post while Dak seemed to be throwing a dig. It's just,
And it looked like CD had kind of given up on the route, to
yeah,
be
and
honest with you.
it's just like we've seen this time and time again in the big games over the last couple of years. Arizona last year, the playoff game against San Francisco, just Kansas City. It's just like in big games, just like the inconsistencies of the offense all rear their ugly head. Be it miscommunications on routes, be it penalties, be it all these different things. And again, we still have what, 8 games to right the ship, and have things humming before the playoffs. But it's getting to crunch time. They're not getting enough out of Michael Gallup. The receivers aren't getting much separation. Noah Brown, God love him, but he's not a legitimate wide receiver 2 or 3. There just isn't a lot there, man, in terms of pass catching. They're really going to have to start leaning on the run. I had some issues with the play calling, especially. I had no issues with the fact that they went for it on fourth down and overtime. I would have gone for that, but on 3rd and 4, and I know CeeDee Lamb got murdered on that pass. That absolutely was pass interference and was a terrible no call. But if you know you're going to go for it on third down, you're gashing them on the ground. Why not run it on third down and set up a really short fourth down? Like and I know that's a little nitpicky, but there's just a lot of inconsistencies and issues that just can time and again rear their ugly head in big games. And they did yesterday in a really big moment.
Okay, so I want to talk about the pass interference because I definitely agree that it was pass interference. I think part of the no call in that situation goes to, I mean, that's a top flight corner that you're going against in that situation. Top flight corners aren't getting called for that in that situation. I mean, you look back a couple years ago, the Gallup deep route on Jalen Ramsey, obvious
Yeah.
pass interference. Your top corners aren't getting called for that. So, like, it is pass interference in a normal situation with a normal cornerback, but reputation, I think, goes a long way with the refs' mind. Whether that's right or wrong, that's a whole different conversation. But in that specific situation, late in the game with the game on the line, not getting called. But I want to go back to, I'm gonna go over this sequence in overtime, where the Cowboys they got the ball first. I didn't have a problem with them going for it on fourth down either, but what I do have a problem with is them not running the football because I mean, when in overtime, it's Tony Pollard 7 yard gain, Tony Pollard 7 yard gain, CD Lamb pass for 15. Then you get the inexcusable offsides penalty by the receiver Jalen
Yeah.
Tolbert, which was completely ridiculous, embarrassing.
Inexcusable.
I
Inexcusable.
mean, and I know I've seen, Dak and Mike McCarthy say that, well, the ref told him to scoot up. Dude, turn your head and look at the ball and kind of
I mean, he
gauge
was
that
so
on where
far
you're at.
offside. He was
Yeah,
so
I
far
mean,
offside.
you might as well have been lined up in the end zone at that point. Like, what are you doing? And that goes to another reason why. I mean, that looks like a miss as your draft pick. But that's another point. But in that situation, 3rd and short, you run the football, especially when Mike McCarthy had said that, on 2nd down, he had told Kellen Moore, hey, 4 down territory, basically, is what Mike McCarthy said after the game. And I listened to Brian Broaddus in the post game show, and he basically thought that Kellen Moore didn't have a play call because when you look at the play design, I mean, it was just something that we've seen so consistent as far as Kellen Moore designing these route concepts and just not really playing the down and distance and situational football.
Yeah,
Um,
everyone's
com-
running deep. Everyone was
Yeah,
running
it's
deep.
like, dude,
You
we
need
need
4
3
yards.
yards at that point, 3 or 4 yards, and he has everybody running down the field. I mean, like you said, no separation, nothing's there. So it's just unfortunate. But the overtime situation, you got to continue to run the football. And then of course penalties. I mentioned the offsides penalty. You get a holding penalty there, and it's just all that accumulates to an L on the road.
Yeah, and another moment that I want to point out is this is a point in the game where you need to go win the game. Uh, and they had several chances, obviously, but so Dallas scores to go up 28-14. Green Bay goes down 28-14, and they have 4th and 7 at midfield, 28-14, and you get beat deep on 4th and 7 for a touchdown. And at that point, I was like, "Oh, this is not going to end well." I was like, I'm in the stadium, and I'm just like, you felt the energy completely shift when Green Bay scored. Like I know momentum's a little bit of a bogus concept and probably isn't a huge thing, but it just felt you felt the shift in the game when Green Bay scored on that 4th and 7 from I think it was like a 40-yard pass to Christian Watson. And then your offense responds. And here's how your offense responds: 8 plays, 25 yards, punt. Green Bay goes right down your throat again, scores. You got a tie game. And here I go. Here you go. You have 2.5 minutes, time to get your revenge. 2.5 minutes, all 3 timeouts, go down and win the damn game. And they go 3 plays,
So let
3
me ask
yards,
you this
punt.
on that point. When they got the ball back with 2.5 minutes, did you have any confidence that they were going to go down and score?
I did. I thought they were. I thought, all right, Dak, this is a big moment for you. And the offensive line didn't hold up on the play. I believe I forget exactly. I know I remember the 3rd down play. I'm trying to remember the 2nd down play where it was incomplete to Noah Brown, but it's just they just it wasn't even close on that drive. And I'm truly shocked that Green Bay didn't even win that game in regulation at that point, because you were giving the ball to Aaron Rodgers at like the 30-yard line, and he only needed 3, and that's just kind of how things played out. But yeah, just
It,
really
yeah, and the
really
reason
frustrating.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that is because I was watching the game with my best friend, and we were with his fiance's parents, and just watching the game in the living room. And he had posed a question to the room, and he was like, "All right, so Dak Prescott game winning drive?" And I was like, "No, 3 and out." And it
Yeah,
just I've seen that too many times. That movie plays out so many times,
yeah,
and Aaron Rodgers, and like you said, I'm surprised Aaron Rodgers didn't march right down the field and kick, get in field goal range and walk it off, in regulation. And then damn sure, once you get the ball first in overtime, there's no way you can give the ball back to Aaron Rodgers without at least attempting, all 4 downs. So that kind of goes back to the point where I just didn't have a problem with them because to me, I think if you kick that field goal, whether you make or miss it, Aaron Rodgers is going to go down the field and he's going to get his team in scoring position, which he did rather easily. After that, the shift in momentum, was already so
yeah.
far shifted in Green Bay's direction.
It's just frustrating that once you took that 28-14 lead, it was like people blaming this game on Dak. Yeah, Dak could have been better in moments, but this was through and through a team loss. Um, you know, both units had several opportunities to go win this game for you uh in the fourth quarter. I mean the drive sequences are, you just needed your defense to get one damn stop, and they go touchdown Green Bay, punt, Dallas punts. Touchdown Green Bay, Dallas punts. Then Green Bay punts at the end of regulation, end of half, downs, Green Bay goes down and wins the game. I mean, both units just crumbled in bad moments. And it's just really disheartening. And again, I also said this on Twitter. I was like, look, as frustrating as this is, they're gonna they can make up for it if they go and beat Minnesota, an 8-1 red hot Minnesota team on the road. This Green Bay collapse won't necessarily be forgiven, but it'll be a lot easier to stomach if you're able to go into Minnesota and get a win this week. And I'm very interested to see how Dallas rebounds this week and how they respond, because this seems like the first, obviously, week 1 when Dak got hurt and everything was a lot of adversity, but this is their first time at full strength this year where they've been kind of questioned. And this is a big response week, and I'm really looking to see how they respond this week.
Yeah, I mean, all that, we'll see. I mean, the biggest thing is, how does this defense respond? I mean, you see Michael Parsons, which he still doesn't look healthy even after the bye week. I mean, he was kind
Yeah,
of limping around and doing things like that. But I thought his post game quotes were pretty interesting. He seemed to call
very.
some guys out about not, staying disciplined in their run fits. And yeah, it's been something that's been talked about by a lot of people all season long. People just getting out of their gaps, trying to be the hero, I guess, on any given play, and it's hurting you in the run game. And I think people pointed out like Van Der Esch and Demarcus Lawrence. I thought Demarcus Lawrence played phenomenal yesterday.
He was very
I
good.
thought he was all over the field, but he's your best run defender, and then you got 10 other guys that either have no interest in wanting to tackle or have no interest in wanting to stay in their gaps and stay disciplined, which is why you give up 200 yards rushing. And then with some of the running backs that are coming up, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, the Eagles run attack. I mean, this is a situation,
Yep,
Travis Etienne in Jacksonville is a problem. So if you don't get this corrected, you're going to learn something real quick.
yeah.
And, it's going to be a long end of the season. And you remember the turning point last year was the Denver game about midway through the season.
It's the
Is
same
this a trend
situation.
at this point? So, I mean, that's definitely something to monitor. And the way that you can kind of right the ship is, or sort of right the ship is beat Minnesota. But, you have to go out and do it.
Well, yeah, that's what this week is going to be all about. Because right now, this feels very 2021 ish in terms of how the season's playing out. And this Sunday is going to be all right. Go prove that you're not last year's team. Go prove that you're gonna get yourself right and get up off the mat and get a really big win. Because frankly, we haven't seen them win many big games recently. Their biggest win last year was that New England game. Um, we just haven't seen them win big games. They've kind of wilted in big games recently, and it's frustrating. So
And
we're going to find out a lot about this team over the next, what are we at? About 14 days between and yeah, and that's the other thing.
well,
You're
the
coming
next
up on,
five
you're,
games,
you're
really, like
coming up.
5 days, really. 2 games in
Yeah.
5 days coming up. Like it's
Yeah.
Vikings,
And,
Giants.
and
Like go
against two
win
pretty
both of
good
those.
teams too.
Yeah, go win both of
So
them.
yeah, it's if they win both, I think they're going to be all right. But yeah, this is just really frustrating at the moment. Now, I do want to talk about the defense, um, and Micah Parsons specifically. I thought maybe Anthony Barr being out impacted how he was deployed. Micah Parsons only had 9 pass rush attempts yesterday. They played him at off ball linebacker all night. By far, he only had nine snaps on the defensive line, and that was by far the most of the least he's had all year. I mean, he was damn near a full-time edge, 40 snaps at the edge against Chicago a couple weeks ago, and maybe the Anthony Barr injury had something to do with it. It probably did, but yeah, not much of an impact for Micah Parsons. He was at off-ball linebacker all night, and Dallas was just the defense was behind the chains all night, and they struggled to create many negative plays. And the thing is, like people have always said, oh yeah, they know that they haven't invested in defensive tackle. Like with the run game, from my untrained eye, I'm no scout, I'm no Brian Baldinger, but um, defensive tackle doesn't really seem to be a massive issue for them. It's where they're getting beat is on the edges. I mean,
Yep.
Demarcus Lawrence is the only edge that's decent against the run. Like, I mean, Dorrance Armstrong's had a great year. He's not great against the run. Sam Williams ain't that. Dante Fowler ain't that. Even Micah Parsons off the edge, like he's not a terrific run defender. Like that's not what he does
Nope.
great at
And teams are
defensive
starting
end.
to find that out because they're running right at him.
And they're running, and even like the corner, like Trevon Diggs over at corner, they're soft around the edges when trying to stop the run, and the linebackers just were a little slow. I thought yesterday was a tough day for Van Der Esch. It's just the linebackers seem to be a step behind, and they're just getting blown off the ball on the edges, and it's hard to watch at times, and um, like you said, it's not going to get any easier. You have some pretty damn good rushing attacks on your schedule coming up. And I think Micah said after the game, he was like, if we don't get this fixed, this is going to keep coming up. So we got
Yep.
to get this fixed and figure it out and get back to their disciplined football. And, I thought yesterday was not a very good day for Dan Quinn. I don't think he called a great game. I don't think he gave Deron Bland enough help, and I know it's hard when you're down your second and third corners, but I also just think it's inexcusable to play Micah Parsons just 8 snaps at the edge. He's the best edge in football. He needs to be on the edge. I don't know about full time. I'm still fine with him being deployed as a linebacker or some, but he's the best edge in football. He's the defensive player of the year. He needs to be rushing the passer. And I do think injuries are hampering him a little bit. It seems like he has a lot of lingering issues that are slowing him down a bit, but Micah Parsons needs to be on the edge. I'm
How
sorry,
much of
but he
that do you
does.
think was the Packers' game plan kind of dictating where he played? Because I mean, they only threw the ball 20 times yesterday.
I
So, like, how much do
guess
you think that played?
it probably had some factor in, but like kind of from the jump, Micah was at off ball linebacker. Like he was, I was paying attention where he was lining up on each play, and he uh he just I don't know, and it's like off ball linebackers can make plays, but it's kind of hard to make it's kind of hard to make big plays. You know, from an off-ball linebacker position. So I definitely think Green Bay's game plan had something to do with it. And now this is look, and I know the Bears have been doing this to everybody too, so it wasn't just a Cowboys thing. But this is now 2 straight games where teams have looked at you and said, and even in both games, in the Bears game and in the Packers game, they were down multiple scores in the second half, both the Bears and the Packers, and they still said we're going to run that damn ball, and that's disrespectful.
Hmm.
That says something
Hmm.
about what they think about your run defense. If they're down 2 scores, which is when you have to cut loose and throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball, and they're still
Nope.
sticking to that run, that
Nope.
that
We're gonna
says a lot.
keep gashing you.
Yeah. It's just frustrating is all, and I hope they figure it out. I hope they get right, but it's just frustrating. Do you have any thoughts about the defense for I give my spiel about my Lambeau experience.
No, I just want to. I guess my last thoughts on the defense are just that. I mean, I think we might have kind of overrated them a little bit. I
Yeah.
mean, I think they had some glaring holes. I thought, Anthony Brown wasn't playing well at all when he was in there, and then somehow it got even worse with Bland and Joseph. Joseph just looks so unaware out there, and it's rough to watch right now. And like I mean, I'm really at a loss for words as far as like what else to say about this defense other than I think we kind of jumped the gun on them, kind of too
Hmm.
quick.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so for sure. Um, Now, I do want to say one other thing about the defense is just I, I don't know how fixable these issues are. That's I think I may
Hmm.
have mentioned this earlier, but I don't know how fixable this is. So they got a big test this week. That depleted secondary is going to be tested. Obviously, yeah, they got to deal with the best wide receiver in football right now, Justin Jefferson. Um, but yeah, I
Yep.
mean, it's definitely frustrating right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to hear about your trip to Lambeau now. Let's get into the fun stuff.
Yeah, so I traveled out there with my buddy who is who's a big time Packer fan. Uh, made the trek, and dude. You got to make it out there someday. You just have to. It's unlike any experience I've ever had. I got to see the game in Arrowhead last year. So this is the second straight year I've gotten to do a cool Cowboys road trip and see a different stadium. And I think Arrowhead was louder than Lambeau Field for sure, but Lambeau Field was way cooler in terms of the experience, the game day atmosphere, the fans. I mean, it's wild that there's just houses right on top of that stadium. I mean,
Hmm.
I went with the group that the ticket sent out there, and the ticket was doing a little tailgate at one of the houses, and I kid you not, I'm looking right at this quaint little front yard house, small little house, and you turn around and there's Lambeau Field right there. So it was really cool. The fans were really nice. I'm sure
It's
they
literally in
were
the
a
middle
little
of a
fed up.
neighborhood.
Oh yeah, right in the middle of a
Yeah.
neighborhood, right, like right in the middle. It was really really cool. It was really cold too. I'm a southerner, so that was testing me on the cold, but I think I dressed warm enough. There was a lot of Cowboy fans out there. That was really fun to see. Um, Yeah, and I'm sure the Green Bay fans around me were a little fed up with how obnoxiously loud I was cheering and everything. I posted a video. I got one of our touchdowns on video, and I was not shy about it, and it helped that there was a lot of Cowboy fans around me that I was able to cheer with. So, but it was a great time. I'm really glad I did the trip. Now, one thing that I was not happy about was after I booked this trip and everything. I looked at the syllabus for one of my classes and I realized I had an exam the Monday after, and I was planning on driving out there, and flights were way too expensive. So I unfortunately had to go back to my hotel last night, turn in early, and I had my alarm set for 2:45 in the morning. Got up and drove all the way back to Missouri this morning to get back for a 12:30 exam, which was not fun, but I'm here. I'm alive. I made it, and it was the experience of a lifetime. So cannot recommend
Awesome.
making your way out to Lambeau enough. It was a great time. Unfortunately, I mean, I had a hell of a day for the first for all of the tailgate and for about 75% of the game. I was having the time of my life, but uh, unfortunately, as we just talked about, it's things went sideways.
Rough
So
ending. Yeah,
that, that,
rough
that
ending.
that's my Lambeau spiel.
Yeah, man. I mean, it sounds like a great time. Now, I saw the video that you had sent, where you were taking, I guess, a shot before, with
Yeah.
the Cowboys
So
fan.
there was a big
So how did the whole tailgating experience like come together? You just found some random Cowboys fans that were
literally
like,
literally I drove. So me and my buddy, we picked up a case of beer and we're just walking around Lambeau, Titletown, the whole district with just carrying the case of beer and enjoying our day. And we popped over to this Cowboys tailgate. We walked by it and I was like, oh, these guys look fun. I think they're called it's like a Facebook group where they go around and they travel to
mm,
different Cowboys games, and it's like it was almost the way the guy explained it to me. It was almost like a fraternity. Where they were called the Baracho Boys or the Baracho Brothers, something like that. It was a bunch of Latino Cowboy fans, and they all had Cowboy jerseys that said Baracho on the back. Um, and we're walking by, and they welcomed us in. We were kind of talking, and then they have one of the guys walks over with a 12 pack of the fireball shooters, and they're passing around. I glance over, and one of them looks at me, hands it, he says, "Hey, you want one?" And I was like, I guess. Those fireball shooters they definitely warm you up. But and then they do the toast and they hold up, hey, how about them Cowboys? Everyone cheers and takes their shooter. But it was a really good time. The Cowboys fans out there were really nice, and I only had one Green Bay fan curse me out, which is probably more than you could
try
say.
going to Philly.
It's probably a lot less than would happen at most other stadiums because generally their fans were super super nice. So I only had one fan curse me out. I wasn't even out of pocket. I was minding my own business at halftime. I was coming back from the concession stand. I got an order of cheese curds, which I was like, when in Rome. I'm in Wisconsin at a football game. I'll get
Right.
some cheese curds. And I'm sitting down at my seat, and I I walked down the aisle, and I realized I was on the wrong side of my section, so I had to walk back up. And I'm walking back up, and the guy looks at me, and he just goes, "Hey, f that," and he goes, "F the Cowboys." And I just look, I got kind of shrugged. I was like, "F off, dude!" Like I'm minding my own business. So, but that was the only negative interaction I had with Packers fans. So it was a great time. If those of you that listen, if you also listen to the ticket put on a nice event on Saturday for all the P1s that traveled. So it was a really good time. And this is two straight. Like I said, this is 2 straight years I've done a little bit of a Cowboys road trip. I might make myself have this as a little tradition because
Ooh,
I love
yeah.
seeing other stadiums. So I might start looking ahead at next year's schedule and seeing about a potential road trip. But yeah, it was a great time. I aside from the outcome of the game, couldn't recommend Lambeau Field anymore. I mean, it's his historic. It's like a borderline of football mecca. I mean, it's
Yeah,
one of the most
absolutely.
iconic stadiums and
Absolutely.
environments, and truthfully, I hate the cold, but in my first Lambeau experience, I was kind of hoping it would be a little cold so you get more of the full Lambeau experience. So it was about low 30s, and as the game went on, it probably got into the 20s. So I stayed warm enough. It was Nose definitely got a little runny, and your hands get dry and my lips are chapped. But
Absolutely.
that's the Lambeau Field experience. So I had a
Well,
blast.
hey,
One of my
yeah, I'm
favorite
glad
trips
you
I've
had a
ever
great
done.
time. Other than the result, of course, but
Yeah,
yeah,
other
sounds
than the
like you had a
result,
great
man.
time, enjoyed it, and yeah, hey, that's something I've always wanted to do is go to like Lambeau Field, like Arrowhead. Those two stadiums you've been to the last 2 years are definitely bucket list
Yeah,
type stuff. So
yeah, it's
you're on a
bucket
roll
list
right
for
now.
sure. We're on a roll. Maybe we'll do another one next year. So, um,
Absolutely.
unless you got anything else, let's get on out of here. We'll be back on Thursday. The pod will post Friday to discuss the Vikings game, and we'll break that down. Another big test for the Cowboys coming up this week, and like we said, we're gonna find out a lot about this team over the next 2 or 3 weeks for sure. So, um, thank you guys for listening. Make sure to check out everything we're doing at the Dallas Sports Fanatic. Check us out on Twitter at Cowboys News 365 and at Dallas_Fanatic. On Instagram as well at DAL Cowboys Fanatic. You can get Corey on Twitter at the Mr. Douglas with 2 S's. You can get me on Twitter at Nate_Sant77. So again, thank you guys for listening. We will talk to you next time on the Silver and Blue Podcast.